All right, so the hands and feet are probably the most work on this. Let's go ahead and knock out the belt real quick. The belt's pretty straightforward. We don't really need to do much to it. The only thing we might want to do is just bring it in line with our other leather areas. We don't really need the wrinkles or any of that detail on a belt. Belts are pretty straightforward and flat. So with that said, I will come in here and I will give it a few divisions just to make it nice and smooth, to remove the faceting. And to prep it to have detail, I'll just go ahead and Dynamesh it at a relatively high Dynamesh, like 4096. And we can go ahead and click the Dynamesh there. This should give us a pretty aggressive amount of polygons. I might even be able to take this a little bit lower, but you know, we're looking for that 2 mil range. So I might play around with backtracking here and doing like 2046. I don't want it too dense, or 2048, excuse me. So I don't want it too dense. Well, that's not quite dense enough, so we're just going to crank that to 4K and call it good. All right. The main things we're going to be adding to this is the same treatment where we kind of do the flattening, and we can do it in a particular direction, either up and down or right and left. Right and left will probably give us the better effect. It just kind of depends. We could also do it both directions, which is interesting. And then the surface noise. And the main reason is just keep our leather treatment the same. Because this doesn't have the same effects going on as you know, the hands and feet in terms of directionality, we don't need to worry too much. So when it comes to the flattening here, I think I'll run long ways. Why am I not seeing this? That's why. It's not the flatten brush. So we can play around with the flattening. I think that one eats away at the ledge too much there, and I kind of want to avoid that. So we could come in here and just kind of beat this up a bit with the flattening brush, running long ways here. I do have symmetry on because I intend to use symmetry on the belt, so just kind of be mindful of that. When I mean use symmetry on the belt, I mean lay it out with symmetrical UVs. We talked a bit about that with the belt buckle. You could definitely make this asymmetrical if you wanted to. You just have to be mindful of how you're going to construct it in the UVs and texturing. If it's asymmetrical, you know, you can't use symmetrical UVs. So you'll have to lay it out to be asymmetrical, which also means you'll have to model it to be asymmetrical. So it just kind of depends on your ultimate goal. But I'll go ahead and just leave it at that. And there we go. So that's going to be our flat. So I'll just name that flat. We can create another layer in here with our surface detail, just like we did before. I could come in here to noise. We could increase the scale, hit OK, and just go ahead and apply that. So it's similar to our other meshes. And at this point, we can adjust these in. I think I've been doing 0.1 on that on the leathers and something like 0.4 on the flattening. So really not a whole lot going on here. The last thing I'm going to do is come in with little lines. So you can see how it has lines or little dots here. We can decide how many we want, but I'll go ahead and just create a new layer here. And for this one, I actually am going to use the chisel. So we'll go BC for the chisel. And what I like to do for these dots is instead of having the chisel set up to have this lazy stroke, I'll often come from this to freehand and switch it to something like drag dot. And what drag dot does is it allows you to kind of just drag the alpha onto here. It's not working though, so that's kind of interesting. Normally, it lets you just kind of drag that on there. It might be because under the stroke here, we need to come in here and change this. So rather than using this, we could try something like our standard brush. BST for standard. And we can just play around with the drag dot here, and we could switch our alpha to be something that'll make a nice little indent. So let's see. Something like this will give a tapering effect. So something like this gives us a little hole. If we hold down Alt, you can see the effect that has. And we can just up our Z intensity to like 100 here. And you can see the result we get there, kind of getting this intense hole in here. That is poking all the way to the torso, so we'll want to change that. But you can see the effect that's going to have. So I'm going to make this a bit smaller, which I think right here looks pretty good. And we can just kind of place a handful of these to indicate that this is indeed a belt. I might be careful here and try and put one right in the middle, which is not easy to do, and usually has a double alpha in ZBrush. So I might turn off my symmetry for that, but I kind of need to. All right, so Alt to subtract, and just add a few of these around here. We could also do them all the way around, you know, just from a stylistic perspective. You could set up a brush to kind of do these in even increments if you wanted to as well, to kind of make them perfectly manufactured. I kind of like to hand place it simply because it gives it a very human feel, which is kind of nice when it comes to something like a belt or a man-made thing. I'm going to switch this to orthographic view though, so I can get a better feel of keeping those in a relatively straight line. And also, I'm kind of manually doing the spacing here. But something like this, can be fun to do here. And belts don't actually have dots all the way around, so it just kind of depends on if we want to do that for our character, or if we want to do something a little bit more subtle and less blatant. For example, this one just has one dot, and this kind of ends in a rounded area. That could be an interesting approach I didn't think about. That would technically be more accurate, which is kind of worth noting. In that case, we could actually add more geometry too. So I guess we have to decide how we want to approach this, don't we? That rounded option is actually mighty tempting. It does mean that we could go completely asymmetrical here, and in which case, I'd basically be coming in here and creating a bigger one of these for a more cartoony look, maybe a couple of these coming into here. And I might even go as far as to create a layer here where I play around with the move brush and we pull this out more if we're going to make it prepared to have that effect. I think to keep this overly stylized, though, I might not. It is tempting, but I kind of want to keep us moving forward and not derail the entire project. So, yeah, we're going to avoid that. I might even avoid these dots altogether. Some of these have them, some of them don't. This one just has one, which might be enough. It also has a little metal piece there. So there's a lot of little small different things we could do that might kind of be interesting. This is a lot easier here to kind of create that connotation. So I kind of like that. Let's maybe try that one out. So I'll go back to my BSD here to get to my standard brush. Hold down Alt, and let me make sure I have the right brush size so I'm not doing something super huge here. And I can go ahead and maybe add 2 dots here, because I think that would be okay. And then we're going to have this metal piece emerging from a dot, which can be good to kind of get in here, and then maybe one more if we wanted to. This is going to make this design asymmetrical, though, so we have to be mindful of that. I might turn this off, though, we'll see, but we could set this down, to something lower, like 0.5 or 0.1. That would just add in little dots there to make it look like a belt. And in terms of getting another piece of geometry in here, I could just hit Insert. We could insert the right type. I think a cube would work fine for this, and we could just scale, move, and rotate this into place, adding some geometry in ZBrush. So it's okay to add at this stage because we don't have a game mesh. Remember, the whole point of doing the high to low is nothing set in stone yet. So if we do notice a detail like that, there's no reason we can't come in here and add this and add it in a way that's easy and convenient for us. Now, easy and convenient is not being 100% accurate with how this is being applied. I don't need to worry about having this perfectly centered, any of that kind of stuff. And I don't need to worry about this being, accurate to the angle or curvature of anything. Just kind of playing around with a form, and depending how we ultimately apply this, applying it. Now, looking at that, I'm noticing this is going to cause a lot of drama with topology. So I think I am actually going to pass. I think on the belt here, we're going to just leave those dots off. And we're just going to leave it with the leather treatment. And then if we want to add dots later, if we decide that's something we want, we can do it in the texture process. I think that'll be the better way to go. But I don't see anything wrong with that for like our hyper cartoony look. Let's call that good for the belt though, and let's get moving forward with some of the stuff like the torso detail and the pants. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can catch the next video in the series when it goes live.